how can we develop this sense of humor? Or maybe to identify our sense of humor, because this is something very personal. It has to do with our history, our childhood, our culture, whether it is regional, or if we come from another country, or if we've lived in certain conditions. We can have very peculiar sense of humor that are part of our identity. So to identify our sense of humor can mean to know if we are more sensitive to mental humor or playing with words, or to absurd situations. What type of comedies do we like? What type of stand-up comics do we like? Am I closer to the dark humor, or more of the absurd? Are we more sensitive to humor that is audacious, that transgresses limits? Is that the type of humor that really catches our attention? And also, where do we see in ourselves humor and joy? Is there a part of our body that when it is moving, like for example when we're dancing, or when we're moving, when we're changing our physical attitude, if we open our arms, if we stretch, if we start moving, does suddenly our internal state change, and are we all of a sudden more capable of being in a state of humor or lightness? And what parts of our body are pleasure areas? This is an exercise we can speak of the one with the Dr. Clown organization that I work with. In certain training sessions that we give, we have people play children games, tag, the four corners, and people can find childhood emotions and see what part of my body is moving, what part of my body is happy. Is it when I run? Is it when I dance and I feel free? Just to try to identify that, because it tells us something about ourselves, and it puts us in contact with our specific humor. To develop our sense of humor can also mean to change our habits. Often we fall into a daily routine, and we always do things the same way. We take the same path when we go to an appointment. We do the same things in the day, in the morning, or when we go to bed. Humor will often come up in moments that are different, things that surprise us, things that we weren't expecting. So when we change our habits, when we do things differently, we are opening the door all of a sudden to have a new space, to have a new creative space that maybe will nourish us, that maybe all of a sudden will allow us to change our perspective, and maybe to have us live internally another emotion. Humor can be developed also through visualization, the whole techniques of imagination. We can take a situation in which we felt uncomfortable, and in our thoughts, in our imagination, trying to develop different scenarios. How could I have acted to have things go differently? How can maybe the situation would have developed if all of a sudden I had done something totally ridiculous, if all of a sudden I had started laughing voluntarily, if all of a sudden I would just started grinning at the person I was talking to. Just to play within your mind, and there's no limit to that, to see how in these scenarios that change my way of seeing a situation, and maybe this will also bring me laughter. And it also, to do this exercise also is done in a way that's not threatening. We're doing it just within ourselves, in our mind, and through visualization. It also allows to write these experiences in our memory, and maybe to induce new ways of acting when we face other situations in our daily life. To develop your sense of humor is also to note daily what makes us laugh or remembers us moments where we had huge laughters or nervous laughters or moments of our childhood or moments where really there's moments of great joy. What started that? What initiated that? To remember that moment, to also be able to write it within yourself by a symbol, by a memory, and make it a sort of department within ourselves in a way that we can go and take them back, find them in more difficult moments, and to try to get in contact with that happy energy. Another way of developing your sense of humor is what I was talking about earlier, these laughter clubs that have developed in pretty much all countries. I know that there is one in Montreal. It was developed in India initially by a Dr. Tekyana, and it was that people met together before work for about 30 minutes to do laughter sessions, voluntary laughter sessions. So the idea is to force yourself to laugh in an induced manner by forcing in the stomach, ha, 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 ha. I'm doing it a little on the phone. And to see how by doing this, by forcing yourself to laugh and to expire more, most of the time a real laughter will come. It's sort of an automatic thing. Voluntary laughter will induce a more spontaneous laughter. So Dr. Cantala had noticed that this brought a lot of well-being and relaxation to individuals who did these voluntary laughing sessions. It's not something that everyone can enjoy, but if it's something you would like to try, you can get the information about laughter clubs that might exist in your region. To develop your sense of humor is also to develop this ability to caricaturize a situation or an emotion. These are exercises developed in theater, but that we can also do alone. For example, when we find ourselves stuck in an authoritative attitude or in an attitude of great sadness or of drama, we can sometimes try to take the situation and to make a caricature of it. So if all of a sudden I find myself yelling at my child who did something wrong, I can sort of stop and do a still frame on the image and try to see how can I make a caricature of this authoritative attitude I'm in today. How can I make my voice greater? How can I change my image or transform myself into a witch, a mad witch? Go into all the imagination of things around this attitude that I might be having. Can I change the tone of my voice? Can I maybe have an image? Can I write around the situation? Can I draw it? And all of a sudden maybe I'll be able to see it from a different point of view and bring some humor into it. There are situations also in which we feel really bad. We can try also to characterize it, to see this part of myself that is so sad. If I make a caricature of it, if I go to the end of the sentence, what image will I see? Sometimes this brings us even to see that sadness, pain, or anger, no matter what the emotion is, without judging them, these emotions are not the whole of our personality, but they're just a part of who we are. And through humor, often in this exercise of caricature, we can do this by playing in our mind or by drawing. This will allow us to step back to see that we're not totally invaded by situations or emotions, that this is just a part